Alright, welcome back to another RAF video. So I'm starting the professions. I am doing the class changes still alongside. So if you haven't seen those, check out. I'll put a link in the description to the playlist. So we've looked at the feral changes between TBC and RAF. We've looked at Boomy and Resto. So we've done the whole Druid, all three specs so far. And we've also looked at some things that we might have forgotten. So the next class videos up is going to be Mage and Paladin, which I'll be working on over the weekend, ready to launch next week. And this video is starting the professions. And I thought we'd start with Inscription Inscription, Scribe, whatever you want to call it, because a lot of people have been asking me questions about it. Because if you don't know, I'm currently on the fresh RAF server, which is Syndragosa, and people are asking, what professions they should go when I'm streaming, etc. So I thought we'd start with Inscription because it's brand new. You might not know what it's about. You might want to start getting herbs ready in TBC now. A full profession kit for Inscription to make that change, in the pre-patch and stuff like that. But ultimately, Inscription's really good, and early on, it's a great money maker, and we're going to talk about why. But first, if you're new to the channel and you've not seen any of my RAF content, or TBC, or vanilla, then you'll know if you check the video up there. The reason I'm doing videos now is because it's going to take me a good year, just over a year, to actually get the channel where I want it. So where it's got all the class guides, the boss guides, the profession guides, previous guides, all of that sort of stuff. So I'm starting now. So by the time RAF launches, you're armed with everything you need on the channel, even if you don't want to watch it now. So make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos if you want to start preparing early like me. But let's jump in and have a look at Inscription. So Inscription is fairly basic. The main place you're going to look at your Inscription will be in Dalaran, in this building here, just at the Mage's Commerce Exchange. Now there's an ink trader, but what we'll start with first is how you actually get materials. So you get two abilities when you learn Inscription. You get Milling, which crush 5 herbs to create pigments for making inks. This will destroy the herbs in the process. So think of this a lot like prospecting. So when you're jewel crafting, you prospect the ore to try to get gems. With Inscription, you mill the herbs to try to get pigment, and then that pigment you can get sort of green, uncommon pigment as well, which you then turn into green ink, so uncommon ink, and then obviously you just get the normal pigment that you turn into normal inks, but we'll look at that more in a sec. Now, what you can use these pigments for is in Inscription, you've got parts that you make. So Snowfall ink is the highest level of ink you can make, and it's needed in all of the expensive recipes. Ink of the Sea is sort of the main normal ink that you're going to use a lot of, and you can use this on the ink trader to make lower level glyphs as well. And then there's a bunch of other inks that you get, throughout the leveling process, but largely the green ones, unless you're making items for alts, you're not going to need them. But let's talk about the main things, what Inscription is actually there for. So if you don't know what a glyph is, a glyph changes the way an ability works. We'll have a look at some of the glyphs in a minute, but for example, as a feral tank, you can get Glyph of Maul, which will strike an additional target. As let's say, a protection paladin, you can get Glyph of Divine Plea, which will reduce damage taken by an additional 3% whilst you've got the Divine Plea up. There's lots of glyphs that you can get, and some of these are going to be more expensive than others because it really depends who learns what in what order. And I know that doesn't make sense at the moment, but let's look at the researching so you understand how you actually learn glyphs. So as you would expect, along the way while you're leveling, you will just learn new glyphs. So along the way, you'll get, Glyph of Arcane Missiles for a mage, for example, which increases the critical strike damage bonus of arcane missiles. You learn loads of glyphs, but these glyphs that you learn from the trainer whilst you're leveling will, on the most part, and in most cases, be extremely cheap to buy. And that's because everybody gets them. So the way you actually get recipes that people haven't got, and you get a chance at making lots of gold, is by doing your research every day. So you get a 20-hour cooldown, or let's just say daily, where you can use Northrend Inscription Research, which compiles your experience from the day, creating a random assortment of inscribed works. You are very likely to discover a new major glyph recipe this way. So you'll learn a new major glyph. And then you get minor Inscription Research, which you learn a lot early on. You get this way before you even get into Northrend. And this creates random scrolls in an effort to discover new minor glyph recipes, which you always get a glyph recipe. So if you're lucky and you get one of those really well sought after glyphs, like for example, DKs are going to want Glyph of Obliterate. If you're the only person that happens to get it, or you're one of few that happens to get it on day one of being able to do your Northrend Inscription Research, people will pay hundreds of gold for a glyph, which in a matter of weeks, maybe a month, is going to end up being about 10 gold or something ridiculous. You know what I mean? The price will absolutely plummet. So Inscription is an amazing, amazing profession to make gold early on, like I have on this private server. Not private, server we don't talk about, you know, on one of those. And I've really raked in gold quite quick from making even cards, which we'll get onto now. And the next big thing you're going to want to scribe for is to make Dark Moon cards. So cards in Wrath work different to TBC. So in TBC or vanilla, you know, you get Dark Moon cards drop, and then you compile them into a deck, you hand them in at Dark Moon Fair. It's the scribes that make the Dark Moon cards, and they're quite expensive to make because they require 3 Eternal Life, 6 Snowfall Ink, which you've got a chance to drop in from like level, you know, max level, North Rend herbs basically, and you need 2 sort of slivers that you get out of these herbs when you're milling them to be able to make 1 Snowfall Ink. So essentially, to get 6 Snowfall Ink, that could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stacks even of herbs, which can take time to get, obviously. So the making 1 card and then not getting the one you want is extremely frustrating when there's multiple decks, multiple numbers, and there's only really 1 deck that's going to sell really well. And it's going to be this. It's going to be the Nobles deck. The Nobles deck makes Dark Moon card greatness, and every hunter, rogue, druid, just you name it, loads and loads of people are going to want this deck, and it's going to be expensive, and it's going to make lots of gold. And if you can buy these materials here, the Snowfall Ink, the Eternal Life, and the Ink of the Sea, at a reasonable price off the auction house, you can make a killing. For example, I made 5 cards earlier, and I bought the mats for 2 of them, which the Eternal Life was about 100 gold each, Snowfall Ink was about 30 gold each, and Ink of the Sea were about 4 gold each. But I got a Nobles card that sold instantly for 2.7k. So you really can flip gold on the auction house just by buying the Eternal Lives. You should really farm the Snowfall Ink and the Ink of the Seas yourself. So that's glyphs, and that's Dark Moon cards. Honestly, they're the 2 biggest reasons to go Inscription, to be able to profit really early on from those glyphs and those Dark Moon cards. And every time you get a Nobles card, you can more or less retire for the day because you're going to have made a lot of gold. But what about the PvE or PvP bonus? So every profession has changed slightly, and we will do a profession overview video where we look at all the bonuses of all the professions, but obviously I will talk about them in each individual video. So there's 2 ways of getting shoulder enchants if we ignore everything prior to Wrath of the Lich King. So there's a reputation, as you would expect, which is called Sons of Hodir. When I say expect, you would normally expect shoulder enchants to be gated behind some sort of reputation, because up until this point that's been the norm. Well, now that's not the only way you can get them. So you can get them from Sons of Hodir doing dailies and farming and questing, or you can master Inscription, and then you get a shoulder enchant that's actually better than Sons of Hodir. So let's compare. So if we go to the Reputation tab for now, this is just going to be the easiest way to do it. We'll go to Reputation Factions, Sons of Hodir, and then let's look at the Exalted Shoulder enchants. So if you was a melee, you're going to get 40 attack power and 15 crit rating from the Exalted Shoulder enchant. If we then look at the equivalent from Inscription, we're going to get 120 attack power and 15 crit. And the beautiful thing about this is it doesn't cost gold, because it's 1 Snowfall Ink. So when I say it doesn't cost gold, if you need to physically go and buy the Snowfall Ink, of course it's going to cost gold. But you would ordinarily have quite a few of these laying around ready for when you get shoulder upgrades. So the fact that you haven't got to worry about Sons of Hodir if you don't want to, and you know you can make something that's even better, it can be quite a worthwhile profession for certain classes. Now we know, or you might not know, but you know, jewel crafting gets, you know, better gems, blacksmithing gets extra slots, enchanting can enchant their rings, you know, like in TBC. So there are maybe bigger bonuses, but this isn't TBC where, you know, every class has got their best professions. Don't get me wrong, absolute min-maxing, then okay, for a DPS, engineering, jewel crafting generally is best, because of the haste enchant you get from engineering on gloves, and jewel crafting for, you know, better gems. So the actual gain is better, is a lot bigger. But for sort of healers, tanks, stuff like that, you've got a little bit more flexibility, you know. And it's like as a mage, you're a mage, warlock, priest, you know, in TBC, you know, you have to go tailoring, enchanting. Basically, that's what you just default specs are. You don't need to do that now. Tailoring's got very good bonuses. Enchanting's got very good bonuses. But if you fancied being able to, early on in the phase, make some gold, be able to make Dark Moon cards for your guild, and still get a really solid PvE bonus in the form of a shoulder enchant, then Inscription is actually pretty good. There's only 2 more things that I really want to touch on, and then that's about it. We can get into all more in-depth, you know, which is what profession's best for which class and all of that when we do the whole profession overview video. But a couple more things. You can get these, which are Scroll of Recalls, which are actually really handy. And they genuinely are really handy. And something I like to do, which is a bit random, is you can get the lower level. So this is Scroll of Recall 3, but you can get 1 and 2. And like 1 and 2, because of your level, they're really unpredictable. And 99% of the time, they won't take you to Dalaran. But let's say you was already in Northrend and you're in the middle of Sholazar Basin and you really want to get to somewhere, I don't know, Kalimdor, Eastern Kingdoms, you want to get somewhere in the old world, maybe you're going to go and boost someone. You can just use one knowing that you're going to end up somewhere back in the old world. Odds are you're not going to be that far from either a boat or a flight path or whatever, you know what I mean? So I like to use it as an extra form of travel, even though it's completely like luck, and you're probably like, oh no, you shouldn't do that, you should just travel normally. But it's fun. It's like, right, we're going Dead Mines, I'm going to use a scroll. Might end up in Westfall, might end up in Winterspring, you know, who knows? So that's a bit of fun. You can also make these, which is Scroll of Fortitude, which is basically, as you would expect, yeah, it's basically like a priest fortitude. But if you haven't got a priest in the group, these can be quite handy to carry around for sure. And then you can also make scrolls, so your normal agility scrolls, strength scrolls, stuff like that. They're not quite as big in Wrath as they were in TBC and even Vanilla, to be fair. But in Wrath, they still are useful, and people should still be using them. And there will be a market for them for people who are speedrunning and doing whatever else. But overall, they've lost a lot of sort of worth in Wrath, in my opinion. And that's probably because they can just be crafted for minimal amounts of materials. And the last thing we'll jump in game for. So the last thing is actually Offhands, which are quite good. And I say they're quite good because in your pre-raid best sort of gear in, you can get a very nice offhand, which is Faces of Doom. So 49 spell power, 42 crit, 42 int, 42 spirit. The reagents or the materials that are required for it are extremely easy to get. I mean, you wouldn't expect this to go for much more than 400 to 500 gold, I would say, really. But you know, you do need a frozen orb, which you're obviously going to get from dungeons like heroics, last bosses. But you can make offhands, which is the main point of this. It's not actually about this individual offhand, you know, all the way from leveling up. If you were starting a new alt and you wanted to go Inscription, you know, and you use an offhand, so you're a priest or a warlock or a mage or something, you can make some very good offhands on the way up whilst you're leveling. And some of them even have nice procs on, like this Royal Guide of Escape Routes, which gives you a heal. So if hardcore actually became a thing in Wrath, who knows, people might like doing the hardcore challenge, but in WOTLK Classic when it comes out, making some good offhands with like healing capabilities and stuff like that while you're leveling is always something worth bearing in mind. But look guys, that's it. That's a little overview on Inscription. I hope you found it useful. Might make your mind up on whether you want to go scribe or not. Please do make sure you like and subscribe to the video because it really helps out. Trying to push to 30,000 subscribers before December, well, before Christmas, basically. We've still got just over a month to go. Hopefully we can do it. We can if you hit that subscribe button anyway. So, look, till next time, peace out, and I'll catch you on the next one.